He was just a waiter, completely broke. She looked like a helpless old lady. But when he defended her from rich, rude customers, he didn't realize one thing. He wasn't just serving a table. He was being tested. This isn't just a restaurant story. It's about a moment that might restore your faith in humanity. Ever feel like doing the right thing gets you nowhere? That the world only rewards the cruel? The life story of Patrick Marshall is about to challenge everything you think you know. Get ready for an emotional roller coaster. We're talking a secret identity kept under wraps, a public humiliation that will leave you shockingly angry, and a plot twist that changes everything. That one act of kindness wasn't just a moment. It was a kindness test. And the payoff? Well, let's just say revenge is a dish the city's most powerful food critic serves in a way nobody sees coming. If you're ready for a heart-touching story that proves a man's true worth and shows how one single decision can be life-changing, you are in the right place. Comment the word kindness right now if you believe he did the right thing. Like this video if you've ever wanted to see bullies get what they deserve. And subscribe with the bell on, because the story of how she made him famous starts now. It all started on a Tuesday, the kind of boring, unremarkable day that so often ends up being life-changing. In the corner of a high-end restaurant, a scene unfolded that felt painfully familiar, the powerful preying on the weak. The antagonists were a table of loud, rude customers, dripping in jewelry and entitlement, their laughter echoing with a sharp, cruel edge. Their target? A frail old lady, huddled by herself, who just wanted a warm meal. This was the setting for a restaurant story that no one saw coming. The air crackled with a low, simmering drama. The wealthy patrons weren't just ignoring her, they were actively complaining, their voices rising as they gestured toward the old woman with open disgust. They wanted her gone. But this wasn't just any elderly diner, this was, unbeknownst to everyone, a kindness test in motion, orchestrated by a woman with a secret identity that could shatter the entire establishment. Her disguise was perfect, designed to be overlooked. And overlook her they did. The staff, usually so attentive, suddenly found other tables to polish, other guests to charm. All except one. Patrick Marshall, a waiter who'd seen too much of this kind of behavior, felt that familiar knot tighten in his stomach. He watched the old lady shrink under the verbal assault of the rude customers, and a switch flipped. He knew this could cost him, but some things were worth more than a paycheck, something he felt deep in his bones. This singular moment was the pivot on which his entire life story was about to turn. He wasn't a hero, not in his own mind. He was just a guy trying to make rent. But as the wealthy table's demands grew louder, Patrick Marshall knew he couldn't just stand by. He defended her not with anger, but with a quiet, firm dignity that cut through the noise. He had no idea this single act would propel his name into headlines, that this food critic in disguise would eventually be the one who made him famous. The tension in the room became shocking. You could hear a pin drop. Patrick politely but firmly informed the rude customers that the woman was a valued guest and would be staying. He then turned to the old lady, his voice softening, offering her a better seat, away from the disturbance. It was a simple gesture, but in this charged environment, it felt like a revolution. It was a spark of decency in a room that had grown cold. It was, quite simply, the definition of a heart-touching moment, a flicker of hope in a cynical world. The old woman looked up, her eyes, sharp and intelligent beneath the facade, taking in the measure of this young waiter. Patrick didn't see a food critic, he saw a grandmother, someone's mother. He saw a human being who was being humiliated for no reason other than her appearance, and he refused to be a bystander. This was the test. Not of the food, not of the decor, but of the soul of the place. Patrick Marshall just stepped into the spotlight without even knowing the stage lights were on. His choice was a surprise to his colleagues, who watched with a mix of terror and admiration. They knew the boss motto, the rich customer is always right, even when they are monsters. The rude customers, of course, were appalled. How dare a lowly waiter challenge them? Their faces turned a shade of purple that promised revenge. But Patrick stood his ground, a quiet guardian against the storm. What he didn't know was that the old lady he defended wasn't just any anonymous diner. She was Natalie Allen, and she was already rewriting his future. This single event set in motion a plot twist so profound it would redefine success for everyone involved. The restaurant story was no longer about appetizers and entrees, it was about integrity versus arrogance. Patrick Marshall, in his simple act of kindness, had just proven his true worth. And that, as it turned out, was worth more than all the money at the wealthy table combined. Now, let's be clear, Patrick Marshall was no saint, but he was a good man, which is often harder. His life story was a familiar one, etched in late-night shifts and the smell of stale coffee. He was a waiter with a heart too big for his bank account, drowning in a sea of student loans and medical debt from his mother's illness. This job, this toxic restaurant story, wasn't his passion, it was his prison. His dream was simple: a small diner, a place with character. He envisioned a spot where kindness was the main course, a place where an old lady could sit for hours with a single cup of tea and never be made to feel unwelcome. A place that was the exact opposite of this one. His boss, a slick man named Mr. Henderson, only saw dollar signs. Henderson's philosophy was that the customer who paid the most, mattered the most. This philosophy left Patrick feeling humiliated on a near-daily basis, forcing him to upsell cheap wine as vintage. This constant clash of values was the central drama of his life. He needed the paycheck to inch closer to his dream, but every shift chipped away at his soul. He'd watch Henderson fawn over rude customers, offering them free champagne after they'd made a hostess cry. Patrick knew this system was broken. He just didn't know how to fix it, or how to escape it. He was stuck in a loop, and the volume of his debt was getting louder every day. His dream diner had a name: the Marshall Plan. It was a silly joke he kept to himself, but it symbolized his escape. It represented his true worth, not as a servant, but as a host, a provider. This dream felt life-changing, even in his imagination. It was this hope that allowed him to put on the apron each night and face the music, even when the music was just the grating laughter of the entitled. This is why he defended the old woman. It wasn't a calculated move, it was a reflex. He was, in that moment, defending his own dream. He was protecting the very idea of his future diner from the cynicism of his present reality.
This act of compassion wasn't just for her, it was for him, too. It was a heart-touching reminder to himself of the man he wanted to be, not the employee he was forced to be. The irony was shocking, really. He was barely surviving, yet here he was, risking the little he had for someone with even less. His colleagues called him Pat, a reliable, quiet guy. They didn't know the fire he banked inside, the deep-seated belief that kindness shouldn't be a luxury. This internal conflict, this kindness test, was one he faced every single day long before Natalie Allen walked in. He often sketched menus on the back of receipts during his break, designing a future he couldn't afford. This wasn't just a job, it was a daily reminder of his failure to launch. The emotional toll was immense. He was a good waiter, maybe the best on staff, but he was invisible to the people who mattered, or so he thought. He had no idea a legendary food critic was about to make him the most visible man in the city. Patrick Marshall was a man on the brink of giving up. His life story felt like a dead end. He was tired of the struggle, tired of seeing cruelty rewarded. He felt that perhaps his boss was right, that money was the only thing that mattered. His dream of the diner felt childish, a foolish fantasy. He was wrong. He was just one plot twist away from it all. This restaurant story wasn't just about food, it was about debt and dreams. Patrick was a struggling artist whose medium was hospitality. He was unknowingly laying the groundwork for how a food critic made him famous, not for his skill in carrying plates, but for his unwavering character. His boss saw him as disposable, but Patrick was about to prove his true worth. Far from the bustling restaurant floor, in a quiet, high-tech office, Natalie Allen was a legend. She was a food critic, not just a food critic. Her words could build empires or tear them down overnight. A single positive review from her made him famouser Harrah chef's career. A negative one was a shocking end to a restaurant's life story. And the most terrifying part? No one knew what she looked like. Her secret identity was the most guarded secret in the culinary world. She wasn't just a critic, she was an arbiter of excellence. But Natalie Allen had grown weary. She was tired of performance, the fawning service she received the moment someone thought she might be a reviewer. She believed a restaurant's soul wasn't in its 100 entree, it was in how it treated the person who couldn't afford it. She wanted to find the true worth of an establishment, not its polished facade. So she devised a plan, a kindness test. She would adopt a disguise, not just any disguise, but one of complete vulnerability. She became the old lady frail, slightly confused, dressed in worn-out clothes. It was a plot twist on her own career. She wouldn't be testing the food, she'd be testing the character of the staff. This was the ultimate restaurant story, played out in secret. The transformation was meticulous. A team of theatrical makeup artists helped her create a new persona. She wasn't just wearing a costume. She became this old lady. She practiced a shuffle, the tremor in her voice. It was an emotional process, tapping into a vulnerability she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a review, it had become a life-changing personal mission. The drama she was about to witness was more real than any play. Her colleagues thought she was mad. "You're Natalie Allen." They'd say, "You don't need to do this." But she did. She had seen too many rude customers get prime treatment, while decent people were ignored. She was looking for something heart-touching, something real. She wanted to find kindness in the wild, not as a performance for a potential reward, but as a genuine human reflex. She chose a specific restaurant because its owner, Mr. Henderson, was notorious for his money-first philosophy. He was exactly the kind of person Natalie despised, the kind who would bow to rude customers and allow a kind person to be humiliated. This wasn't just a random test, it was a targeted strike. She was walking into the lion's den, disguised as a lamb, to see who, if anyone, would bother protect her. Her secret identity was her armor and her weapon. As she walked through the door, the chill she received from the staff was immediate. They saw a problem, not a person. They saw a non-tipper. The surprise was how quickly they dismissed her, how thoroughly they judged her. She was now on the receiving end of the behavior she had long suspected, and she was waiting for a hero. She didn't know his name yet, but she was looking for a Patrick Marshall. She was looking for one person, just one employee, who would see past the disguise. She was hunting for integrity. She knew this kindness test was extreme, but the stakes were high. The city needed to know the truth about its most celebrated restaurants. She was a food critic who would deliver it. This restaurant story was about to get a dose of reality. Natalie Allen, the most powerful woman in the industry, was now the most vulnerable person in the room. She was looking for someone to defend her, not because she needed it could buy the whole building, but because the city needed to know that such people still existed. The test had begun. The heavy oak door of the restaurant swung open, and Natalie Allen, in her old lady disguise, shuffled in. The warm, opulent air hit her, a stark contrast to the cold indifference from the hostess. Natalie asked for a table for one. Her voice of practice, quiet tremble. She was seated at the worst table by the kitchens, but that was just the beginning. The real drama was brewing at the table next to her, a group of rude customers in sharp suits and glittering dresses. They noticed her immediately. Their conversation, loud and boisterous, faltered. Then came the whispers, followed by poorly stifled laughter. "My God, what is that?" One woman hissed, loud enough for Natalie to hear clearly. "This isn't a soup kitchen." The words were sharp, designed to cut, and Natalie felt a genuine pang of anger. Her secret identity was working almost too well. She was being humiliated, and it felt shockingly real. The group's leader, a man with a booming voice, signaled to a passing waiter. "Excuse me," he said, not even looking at the staff member. "We're paying top dollar for this meal. We don't need to look at that." He gestured dismissively at Natalie. "Move her, or move us, but get her out of our sight." The sheer arrogance was breathtaking. It was a raw, unfiltered display of cruelty, and it was the very thing the food critic was there to find. Natalie kept her head down, clutching her worn purse. She was playing the part of the helpless old lady, but inside, the powerful Natalie Allen was taking meticulous mental notes. This was more than just bad manners. This was a moral failure of the highest order. The rude customers weren't just patrons, they were bullies, using their wealth as a weapon. This restaurant story was rapidly turning dark, and she was at the center of it. The emotional current in the room was palpable. Other diners started to notice the confrontation. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with a cold curiosity. No one spoke up. No one moved. This silence, this collective decision to do nothing, was almost as damning as the insults. Natalie felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It was a chill of apathy. This was a kindness test for the entire establishment, and so far, everyone was failing spectacularly. The rude customers were now emboldened, their mockery growing louder. They joked about what she might have, what diseases she might be carrying. It was a shocking display, utterly devoid of empathy, and the staff, including the manager, seemed frozen or worse, inclined to agree with them. Patrick Marshall, busy at his own station, hadn't seen her enter. He was only alerted when he heard the raised voices. He looked over and saw the scene, the rich table sneering, and the old lady looking small and defenseless. His heart sank. He knew exactly what this was. It was a part of the job he hated most, the part that made him question his own life story and the choices that led him here. The plot twist of her secret identity remained hidden. To them, she was a nobody, but this nobody was the most powerful food critic in the country. She was patiently waiting to see what would happen next. Would anyone defend her? Or would she be cast out? Proof that decency was well and truly dead? Her true worth was hidden, but the restaurant was about to be revealed. This single scene, this raw drama, was the crux of her entire investigation. It was a heart-touching and sickening moment. The rude customers had laid down the gauntlet. They believed their money gave them the right to dehumanize someone. Natalie Allen waited, her disguised face a mask of sorrow, while inside, the critic was sharpening her pen, ready for the revenge that would soon follow. As the insults from the rude customers grew sharper, a cold silence fell over the staff. They knew this drama. It was the unwritten rule of the restaurant: high rollers get what they want. Patrick's boss, Mr. Henderson, finally glided over, not to the old lady, but to the wealthy table. He approached them with a deep, apologetic bow, his face a mask of professional sympathy. "Gentlemen, madam, my deepest apologies for this." "Disturbance," he said, his voice smooth as oil. He didn't even glance at Natalie Allen. In his eyes, she wasn't a customer, she was a problem, a stain on his perfect, profitable evening. He was fawning over the very people causing the scene, validating their cruelty. "I assure you, we will handle this." He then shot a venomous look toward another waiter, a junior staffer, and motioned with his head toward Natalie. The message was clear: get her out. The junior waiter, terrified of the boss, approached Natalie's table. "Ma'am," he stammered, his face red with embarrassment. I'm afraid we're going to need this table. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable elsewhere?" The elsewhere hung in the air, clearly meaning outside. It was a humiliated employee being forced to humiliate a customer, a cycle of disdain. This restaurant story was becoming a tragedy of cowardice. Natalie, the disguised food critic, looked up with wide, sad eyes. She was now witnessing the true character of the management. Henderson was actively siding with the bullies. He was reinforcing the idea that money could buy the right to be monstrous. This wasn't just poor service, this was a moral void. It was shocking. She saw Patrick Marshall watching from across the room, his face a storm of conflict. The other staff members took their cue from Henderson. They bustled past Natalie's table, pointedly ignoring her, refusing to make eye contact. They refilled the water glasses of the rude customers with extra-wide smiles, laughing at their jokes. They were complicit, choosing self-preservation over simple decency. This kindness test was revealing a deep rot at the core of the establishment. This was the moment that would define the night. The entire restaurant was participating in this old lattice public shaming, led by the manager himself. Natalie felt a surge of cold fury beneath her disguise. Henderson was so focused on the short-term profit from one table that he was about to sacrifice his entire business. He had no idea of her secret identity or the plot twist he had just set in motion. It was an emotional low point. The restaurant had failed. Natalie was about to accept this, to stand up and leave, to go home and write the review that would destroy them all. She had seen enough. The true worth of this place was zero. The cruelty was systemic, flowing from the top down. This was no longer a test. It was a verdict. But then, something unexpected happened. A figure broke from the shadows of the service station. It was Patrick Marshall. He had been watching his boss, his colleagues, and the rude customers, and the look on his face was no longer one of conflict. It was one of decision. He was a simple waiter, but he was about to do something no one else in the room had the courage to do. He was about to intervene. He was about to walk away from his own life story of quiet desperation and step directly into the drama. He started walking toward the tables, not towards his boss, but towards the old lady. He was about to risk everything. And Natalie Allen, the food critic, held her breath. The test wasn't over just yet. Patrick Marshall felt his heart hammering against his ribs. He saw his boss fawning, the junior waiter's shame, and the old lattice silent resignation. It was too much. It was the exact scene that haunted his dreams of opening his own diner. With a deep breath, he pushed off the wall and walked directly into the center of the drama. He walked past his boss, past the rude customers, and stopped directly at Natalie Allen's table. "Ma'am," he said, his voice clear and kind, "I am so sorry." The entire restaurant went silent. Mr. Henderson's face, which was smiling at the wealthy table, froze. The rude customers stopped laughing. Patrick ignored all of them. He focused entirely on the old lady. "You should not be treated this way," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You are a guest in this restaurant, and you deserve respect." He defended her. Simply, directly. It was a shocking act of defiance. He then offered his arm. "My name is Patrick, and I would be honored if you would let me move you to a better table. I have the best seat in my section by the window, and I will be taking care of you personally for the rest of your meal." It was an act of pure, unadulterated kindness. He wasn't just moving her, he was upgrading her. He was publicly declaring her value in a room that had deemed her worthless. Natalie Allen, the powerful food critic, looked up at this young waiter, and for the first time that night, she felt a genuine emotional surge. It was heart-touching. Here he was, a man with nothing, risking everything for a stranger. She put her frail, trembling hand, a bit of acting, a bit of real emotion on his arm. "Thank you, young man," she whispered. "That is very kind." This was the moment. This was the man she was looking for. As Patrick helped her up, he turned to face the lions. He looked at the rude customers, his expression not of anger, but of cool disappointment. Then he looked at his boss, Mr. Henderson, and said nothing, which was somehow worse. He had drawn a line in the sand. His true worth was shining like a beacon. He was no longer just a waiter, he was a statement. He led the old lady through the restaurant, a quiet, dignified procession of two. It was a walk of shame, but not for them. It was for everyone else. He seated her at his prime table, a cozy booth with a view of the city lights. He brought her fresh water with lemon and a basket of warm bread, treating her like royalty. He had passed the kindness test with flying colors, completely unaware it would be life-changing. The plot twist was that Patrick felt good. He was terrified. Sure, he knew he was about to be fired. But as he stood there, taking her simple order for soup, he felt lighter than he had in years. He had finally lived up to his own standards, the standards of his dream diner. He had stopped being a victim of his life story and had become its author, even if it meant a disastrous ending. The rude customers were sputtering, their faces red with fury. Mr. Henderson was already marching towards Patrick, his eyes narrowed to slits. The drama was about to escalate. Patrick had chosen his side. He had chosen to defend the humiliated over the powerful. He had no idea his secret identity customer was about to make this act legendary. He had no inkling that this single decision, this defiance, was a key. He didn't know the old lady was a food critic. He didn't know his act of kindness would be the very thing that made him famous. He just knew he was tired of the ugliness. And in that moment, Patrick Marshall was the richest man in the room. The fragile peace of the restaurant shattered. The rude customers, having been publicly rebuked by a mere waiter, exploded. Who the hell does he think he is? The booming man yelled, slamming his fist on the table. I spend more money in here in a month than he makes in a year. This is an outrage. They were humiliated, and in their world, humiliation was a crime that required immediate and severe revenge. Their fury was a performance, loud and shocking, designed to draw the maximum amount of attention. We were insulted. By him, the woman shrieked, pointing a diamond-covered finger at Patrick Marshall, who was calmly pouring water for Natalie. He called us disrespectful. He defended that thing over us. We are the victims here. This plot twist in their narrative was as absurd as it was predictable. Mr. Henderson, the boss, rushed to their side, practically wringing his hands. Please, I am so sorry. He is new. He is confused. He will be dealt with. But the rude customers weren't interested in apologies. They wanted blood. Dealt with? He should be fired. The man demanded. Fire him. Fire him right now, in front of us, or we will ruin you. We'll post reviews everywhere. This restaurant story will be over by morning. This was the ultimate drama, a public execution, for a crime of kindness. The emotional temperature of the room was boiling. Patrick, standing by Natalie's table, watched his boss crumble. He knew this was it. This was the end of his job. He had known it was a risk, but the sheer vitriol of their response was still a surprise. He had simply shown kindness to an old lady. Natalie Allen, the disguised food critic, sat quietly, eating her bread. She was a calm in the eye of the storm, her secret identity a shield. She observed the naked, ugly entitlement of the rude customers. She watched Henderson, a man with no backbone, quiver before them, and she watched Patrick, who stood tall, his face filled with a sad resolve, not fear. The demand hung in the air, fire him. It was a loyalty test for Henderson. Would he back his staff, his own employee, who had done nothing but uphold basic human dignity? Or would he bow to the bullies, to the money? The answer was, sadly, never in doubt. Henderson saw Patrick as a liability, a loose cannon who didn't understand the business. This kindness test was too complex for his simple, greedy mind. You, Marshall, Henderson barked, his voice shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. He was angry at Patrick for creating this life-changing, or rather, job-ending situation. The rude customer smiled, a cruel, triumphant smirk. They were about to win. They always won. This was how their world worked. This confrontation was the climax of the entire evening. It was a battle for the restaurant soul, and the soul was losing badly. Patrick Marshall had shown his true worth, but it seemed that in this world, his worth was valued at less than a single expensive dinner. He had defended the old lady, and now, no one was left to defend him. He looked over at Natalie one last time, giving her a small, reassuring nod, as if to say, "It's okay. I'm glad I did it." This heart-touching gesture, this final act of grace under pressure, was the last piece of evidence Natalie Allen needed. The food critic had her story, and it was going to be explosive. From her new, comfortable booth, Natalie Allen, the old lady with the city's most powerful pen, observed everything. She was a judge, and the courtroom was this very restaurant. She saw the rude customers and their performative rage. She saw the spineless manager, a man hollowed out by greed. But most of all, she saw Patrick Marshall. And what she saw gave her a flicker of hope. It was a heart-touching display in the midst of chaos. She watched him as he faced his boss wrath. Patrick didn't grovel. He didn't make excuses. He didn't apologize for his actions. He simply stood with a quiet dignity, his true worth radiating from him like heat. He had made a choice, and he was willing to stand by it, even as the drama reached its peak. He was, in this moment, a giant among children. Natalie, the masterful food critic, understood the cost. She knew what a job like this meant to a young man like Patrick. It was his livelihood. It was his rent, his food, his fragile dream of a diner. She knew he was sacrificing his job security, his entire life story stability, for a principle. He had chosen compassion, a forgotten currency in this establishment. This was a kindness test in its purest form. It wasn't just about being nice, it was about being brave. It was about standing up to the rude customers in a system that enabled them, knowing it would cost him personally. Patrick's integrity was unwavering. He wasn't acting for a reward, he was acting from a core belief, and that Natalie knew was priceless. He had been humiliated by his boss before, forced to comply, but this time he refused. He had defended her, and in doing so, he had defended his own soul. The emotional strength this waiter displayed was more impressive than any culinary masterpiece she had ever tasted. This was character. This was the story she had been searching for. She saw the shocking moment his boss pointed a trembling finger towards the door. She saw the relief on the faces of the rude customers as their revenge was served. And she saw Patrick, a man who had just lost his job, simply nod, untie his apron, and place it on a service counter. He didn't beg. He didn't yell. He just accepted it. This silent observation was life-changing. Natalie Allen had come here to write a restaurant story, but she had found something much bigger. She had found a person who proved that decency wasn't dead, just endangered. Her secret identity allowed her this unvarnished look at the truth. The plot twist was that Patrick thought he had failed. He thought this was the end. But from Natalie's perspective, this was a surprise victory. He had passed the test he didn't even know he was taking. He had proven himself to the one person in the city who could take his integrity and turn it into a headline that would echo everywhere. She watched him walk past her table. He paused, looked at her, the old lady, and gave her a small, sad smile. "Enjoy your soup, ma'am," he said quietly. He had no idea. He had no idea that the food critic was about to take his simple act of kindness and make him the most famous waiter in the world. She was about to make him famous. The ultimatum from the rude customers still hung in the air: fire him, or we ruin you. Mr. Henderson, a man whose spine was made of jelly, didn't hesitate. The thought of a bad review, of losing this table's revenue, was far more terrifying to him than the loyalty he owed his employee. He looked at Patrick Marshall, his face twisted in a mask of cold fury. "Marshall, you're done," he snapped, his voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. The shocking finality of it stunned the other staff. Patrick had been a good waiter, reliable, hard-working. But it didn't matter. He had broken the cardinal rule. He had cost the boss money, or at least the promise of money. "You have the audacity," Henderson seethed, "to insult my best customers? To disrespect me? After I gave you a job?" He was painting Patrick as a villain, the ungrateful snake in his garden. "Get out," Henderson said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. "Take your apron off. I want you out of my restaurant. Now." It was a brutal public execution. He was humiliated, fired on the spot in front of the very people who had demanded it. The rude customers watched, sipping their wine, a small, satisfied smirk on their faces. This was their revenge, and it was swift. Patrick stood there for a beat, the world slowing down. This job, this place he hated but desperately needed, was gone. His life story had just taken a sharp nosedive. He looked at his boss, at the customers, at the old lady Natalie Allen, in her disguise, who was watching with an unreadable expression. He had defended her, and this was the price. It was a devastating, life-changing moment. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. What was the point? He had known this was a possibility. He slowly, methodically untied the apron. He placed it on the service tray, a final, symbolic act of surrender. The drama was over. The bad guys had won, or so it seemed. This restaurant story had reached its bleak, unhappy ending. He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent dining room. He could feel the eyes of every diner on him. He felt like a failure. His dream of a small diner felt impossibly far away now. He was just another unemployed waiter with a good heart and a bad habit of doing the right thing. It was a heart-touching and tragic exit. Natalie Allen, the food critic, watched him go. She memorized the look on Henderson's face, the smugness of the rude customers. She had seen the kindness test through to its bitter conclusion. Patrick had proven his true worth, and the restaurant had proven its utter lack of it. Her secret identity was still safe. The door closed behind Patrick Marshall. A surprised sense of finality settled over the room. Henderson immediately returned to the wealthy table, apologizing profusely again, offering them a free bottle of his most expensive champagne. He had solved the problem. He had excised the kindness from his establishment. But the plot twist was already in motion. Henderson thought he had avoided a bad review from the rude customers. He had no idea that he had just guaranteed a legendary, career-ending review from the most powerful food critic in the city. He had fired the one man who could have saved him, and he had done it to impress the very people she was about to destroy. Patrick Marshall pushed through the restaurant's heavy doors and stepped out into the cold night air. The streetlights blurred through the sudden, hot tears that welled in his eyes. He was humiliated. He was unemployed. He was, in a word, devastated. That single act of kindness, that moment he defended the old lady, felt like the stupidest decision of his entire life story. His career, the one he was trying to build, felt like it was in ruins. He leaned against a brick wall, the reality crashing down on him. How was he going to pay rent? What about his debt? The dream of his diner, the Marshall Plan, now seemed like a cruel joke, a childish fantasy. He had been humiliated for his compassion, fired for having a spine. This was the revenge the world took on people who tried to be good. It was a truly emotional rock bottom. He replayed the drama in his head, the sneering faces of the rude customers, the cold, calculating eyes of his boss, the quiet, sad face of the old lady. He hoped, at least, that she was okay. That small, heart-touching thought was cold comfort. He had saved her from a few moments of discomfort, but in doing so, he had sacrificed his entire livelihood. It didn't feel like a fair trade. This restaurant story was over for him. He was just a waiter, and there were 1,000 other waiters in the city. But who would hire him if Henderson badmouthed him? He could be blacklisted. This was a shocking and terrifying thought. He had chosen integrity, and the price was his future. He felt alone and foolish and utterly defeated. This, he thought, was a plot twist, not a good one. This was a false Dorota. The moment where the hero realizes he's not a hero at all. He's just an idiot who doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. His true worth felt like it was zero. He had failed the world's kindness test, which was, in his mind, to be smart enough to ignore the suffering of others to protect yourself. He started the long walk home, no money for a cab. Each step felt heavier than the last. The city, which usually felt full of promise, now felt like a cold, indifferent machine. He was just another broken cog. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Good deeds were supposed to matter. But Patrick didn't know about the secret identity of the woman he had saved. He didn't know that his restaurant story wasn't over, it was just the end of Act 1. He didn't know that the food critic, Natalie Allen, was still inside, watching, her plan already forming. He thought his kindness had destroyed him. He had no idea it was the very thing that was about to make him famous. He couldn't see the life-changing surprise that was barreling toward him. He was a good man, walking home in the dark, believing his life was over. He was wrong. The revenge he thought had suffered was nothing compared to the revenge Natalie Allen was about to unleash in his name. His act of kindness wasn't a career ender. It was a career maker. Back inside, the restaurant story had seemingly returned to normal, at least on the surface. The rude customers were laughing, their victory complete. Mr. Henderson was breathing easily again, his best clients placated. The drama was over. At the quiet table by the window, Natalie Allen, the old lady, signaled for her check. The new waiter who brought it, the same one who'd been too scared to act earlier, barely glanced at her. He just dropped the bill on the table and walked away. Natalie looked at the check for the soup. It was pathetically small. She had just watched a man's life story be derailed. His career detonated all over this tiny table. The contrast was shocking. She pulled out a worn-out change purse, part of her disguise, and carefully counted out the exact amount, plus a modest tip. She wasn't playing the powerful food critic now. She was playing the old lady to the very end. She laid the money on the table, her mind a steel trap of names, quotes, and details. She had Henderson's exact words. She had the specific insults from the rude customers. And most importantly, she had her hero Patrick Marshall, a waiter who had been humiliated and fired for an act of grace. This wasn't just a review she was writing, it was a reckoning. She stood up slowly, her frail old lady persona firmly back in place. She shuffled past the wealthy table, who didn't even notice her. She passed Mr. Henderson, who was now pouring that free champagne. He gave her a cold, dismissive look, a good riddance glance. He had no idea. He was looking at his own downfall and didn't even see it. The surprise would be delicious. This was the power of her secret identity. She could walk among them, see their true worth or lack thereof, and leave without a ripple. She was a ghost, but she was a ghost who was about to haunt them all. The plot twist she was about to unleash would be life-changing for every single person in that room. She pushed open the door and stepped into the same cold night air that Patrick Marshall had walked into just minutes before. But where he felt defeat, she felt a cold, hard resolve. This was more than a kindness test. It had become a mission of revenge for Patrick, and of justice for every person who had ever been made to feel small. As she walked toward her hidden car service a block away, the old lady began to fade. By the time she slid into the back of the warm luxury sedan, she was Natalie Allen again. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, not to her editor, but to her private investigator. "I have a name," she typed. "Patrick Marshall. Find him. I also have the names of the patrons at Table 7. Find them, too." The storm was not just about to hit. It was already forming, a Category 5 hurricane of consequences. The emotional weight of what she had seen had settled on her, but it wasn't sadness. It was fuel. This restaurant story was about to become a legend, and she was the one who would write it. She didn't look back at the restaurant. There was nothing left to see. She had all the evidence she needed. The heart-touching bravery of Patrick and the ugly, cowardly core of the establishment. The food critic was ready to go to work. The next morning, the city's culinary scene woke up, grabbed their phones, and collectively choked on their coffee. The new review from Natalie Allen was live. But this was not a review. It was an indictment. The headline was shocking. And it had nothing to do with food. This restaurant has the finest decor in the city and an utterly bankrupt moral character. The restaurant story was instantly the #1 topic in town. The article began not with appetizers, but with the old lady. Natalie described in vivid, heart-touching detail the experience of walking into a high-end establishment and being treated like human refuse. She painted a picture so real, so emotional, that readers could feel the chill from the staff, the sneers from the other diners. It was a masterpiece of narrative drama. She didn't just review the restaurant, she reviewed the people. She described the rude customers at Table 7, and in a shocking move, she used their names. She had found them. She detailed their public mockery, their demands, their cruel, entitled laughter. She exposed them for all the city to see, holding their behavior up to the light like a dirty, squirming insect. Then, she turned her pan on the management. She described beat by beat how the boss, Mr. Henderson, had fawned over the bullies, validated their cruelty, and then publicly humiliated and fired the one employee who showed a shred of decency. She called it a staggering act of cowardice and a complete failure of leadership. The food critic was serving her revenge ice cold. This wasn't a review. It was a life story playing out on the front page. It was a plot twist no one saw coming. A food critic with a secret identity had conducted the ultimate kindness test, and the restaurant had failed in a way that was spectacular. The review was a surprise to everyone, a bombshell that rocked the industry. This was the life-changing moment. The article didn't mention her disguise. She simply wrote as if she had been observing the entire thing. She wrote about the frail, elderly woman who had been the target of the abuse. And then she introduced her hero. She defended Patrick Marshall by name. She described his quiet courage, his unwavering compassion. She detailed how he had risked and lost his job to protect a stranger. She didn't call him a waiter. She called him the only gentleman in the room. The review ended with a line that would be quoted for years. The food at this establishment is irrelevant, because a restaurant that serves cruelty as its main course and fires the only staff member brave enough to refuse it doesn't deserve your money. It deserves to be empty. And with that, Natalie Allen had pulled the pin. The grenade was set to explode. Patrick Marshall's name was now in print, and he had no idea. The review wasn't just a review. It was the thing that made him famous. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Natalie Allen's review didn't just go viral. It became a cultural moment. It was shared tens of thousands of times before lunch. The restaurant story was on every news channel, every blog. The drama was addictive. The review, with its plot twist focusing on character, was all anyone could talk about. The rude customers, named and shamed, were experiencing their own shocking day. The man, a high-profile executive, had his company's switchboard flooded with calls demanding his resignation. The woman, a socialite, was uninvited from every charity board she sat on. Natalie's revenge was surgical. She hadn't just called them out, she had ended their social careers. Mr. Henderson, the boss, arrived at his restaurant to find a swarm of news vans and protesters. His phone was a nuclear reactor of missed calls. He read the review, and the blood drained from his face. He was a cowardly boss, a permanent stain on his name. He was humiliated on a scale he couldn't have imagined. His restaurant was empty, the reservations canceled, all of them. But the most life-changing part of the review was the praise for Patrick Marshall. Natalie Allen had given him a title that was instantly iconic: 5-star integrity. In a city obsessed with star ratings, this was the highest honor. She had defended the man who had defended her. She had shown the city his true worth. Patrick, meanwhile, was at home, scrolling through job sites, completely unaware. His phone, which had left in the other room, had been buzzing nonstop. He felt emotional, depressed, and was eating stale cereal for breakfast. His life story felt like a joke. He was a man who had lost everything for a bowl of soup. This kindness test had, in his mind, proven that kindness was a losing game. But the world was already changing around him. People were sharing the article with hashtags Patrick Marshall, 5-star integrity, justice for Patrick. He was a reluctant hero of a story he didn't even know was being told. The heart-touching contrast was a narrative goldmine. The food critic, with her secret identity now implicitly revealed though she never admitted to being the old lady, had shifted the entire conversation. People weren't just angry at the restaurant, they were in awe of Patrick. He was the waiter who had become a folk hero overnight. The surprise was total. Patrick Marshall, the man fired for doing the right thing, was now the most famous man in the city. The review wasn't just an article, it was a crown. Natalie Allen hadn't just destroyed a bad restaurant, she had anointed a good man. And the best part? She wasn't done. The review was just phase 1. Phase 2 was about to begin, and it was headed directly for Patrick. The review had made him famous. Her next move would make him a legend. Patrick Marshall finally noticed his phone. It was glowing, vibrating, and smoking with notifications. He had hundreds of texts, missed calls, and social media tags. "What is going on?" he muttered. He opened a link from his friend with a headline about the cowardly boss and 5-star integrity. He read his own name. He read about the old lady. He read the entire, detailed, shocking account the night before. He was stunned. The restaurant story he had lived was now public. Every agonizing detail. He saw his name praised, held up as a hero. It was a surprise so profound, he had to sit down. He was humiliated one night and celebrated the next. This emotional whiplash was dizzying. The plot twist of his own life story was happening in real time. As he was trying to process this, his phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. He usually ignored these, but something told him to pick it up. "Hello? Is this Patrick Marshall?" A voice asked. It was calm, powerful, and impeccably clear. It was not the voice of the old lady he had defended. "Yes, this is he. Mr. Marshall, my name is Natalie Allen." Patrick's heart stopped. The Natalie Allen, the food critic, the author of the article. He was holding his breath. I read your article." He stammered. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." He was talking to the legend who had just made him famous. "Mr. Marshall," she continued, a hint of warmth in her voice. "I was the one who wrote the article, but I was also the one who was there." Silence. Patrick tried to connect the dots. I don't understand." "I was the old lady you defended," Natalie Allen said. This was the plot twist. This was the life-changing moment. The secret identity was revealed. The kindness test was officially over. Patrick slumped against the wall, his mind reeling. The old lady he had saved was the most powerful woman in the industry. The drama of the night before suddenly snapped into sharp focus. It was a test, Patrick whispered, more to himself than to her. You were testing us. Yes, Natalie said, and you were the only one who passed. Your boss, the rude customers, they all failed. But you, Patrick, you showed a true worth that is incredibly rare. He was speechless. The waiter who thought his life was over was now on the phone with the food critic who had orchestrated the entire event. It was a heart-touching and terrifying realization. He had passed a test he never knew existed, and the prize was... What? He was about to find out. The article was just a beginning, Natalie Allen said, her voice turning from reflective to all business. Your revenge on your old boss is that his restaurant is finished. But my thanks to you is something much more substantial. I believe your true worth is being wasted. I have a proposal for you. A proposal? Patrick Marshall repeated, his voice barely a whisper. He was still trying to process the secret identity of the old lady. He was on the phone with Natalie Allen, the food critic who had just turned his life upside down. Mr. Marshall, Natalie said, that review wasn't just to expose a bad restaurant. I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm tired of rewarding talent that is not paired with character. She explained that this kindness test had a much deeper purpose. I wasn't just looking for a story. I was looking for a person. The culinary world is full of rude customers, arrogant chefs, and cowardly owners like your old boss. I've grown weary of it. I decided to use my power for something life-changing. I was looking for a partner. She said, the words landing with shocking weight. Not a business partner in the traditional sense, but a human partner. Someone I could invest in. Someone who had the soul of hospitality, not just the skill. Someone who understood that a restaurant's true worth isn't its bottom line, but its heart. Patrick was silent, his mind racing. This plot twist was beyond anything he could have imagined. This legendary food critic wasn't just offering him a pat on the back. She was offering him. What? A job? No. It felt like something much bigger. You defended me when I was humiliated. Natalie continued, her voice emotional for the first time. You didn't do it because you thought I was a food critic. You did it because you are a decent man. You lost your job for it. That, Patrick, is character. That is the 5-star integrity I wrote about. She told him about his dream. I did my research on you, Patrick. I know you've been struggling. I know you've been sketching menus on the back of receipts. I know you have a dream of a small diner. The Marshall Plan, I believe? Patrick's blood ran cold. She knew everything. This was a surprise of a whole new magnitude. This was never just a restaurant story for me, she said. It was an audition. I was auditioning the city, looking for one person who deserved a chance. You, Patrick Marshall, are that person. I don't want to just write about good restaurants. I want to build one. With you. This was the heart-touching climax of the whole ordeal. This was the true revenge. Not just a failure of his old boss, but the success of the man he fired. Natalie Allen was offering him his dream. His life story was no longer a tragedy. I'm not going to just write a check, she said. I'm going to be your partner, your mentor. We are going to build the most incredible diner this city has ever seen. A place built on the very kindness you showed me. What do you say, Patrick? He was the waiter. She made him famous. Now, she was going to make him a success. 6 months later, the Marshall Plan opened its doors. It was not the tiny, struggling diner Patrick Marshall had once dreamed of. It was a beautiful, warm, inviting space in the heart of the city, funded entirely by Natalie Allen, his new partner. The restaurant story had its new beginning. It was the most anticipated opening of the decade, all because of the waiter who had been made him famous. The concept was revolutionary because it was so simple kindness first. The staff was paid a living wage, and the number one rule was to treat every single person, from the billionaire to the person just ordering coffee, with the same level of respect. This was Patrick's true worth made manifest. It was a heart-touching contrast to the place he had been fired from. On opening night, the line wrapped around the block. Every news outlet, every blogger, every food critic who wasn't Natalie was there. And in the corner booth, Natalie Allen sat, no disguise, smiling as she watched Patrick, not as a waiter, but as the owner, greeting every guest. This life-changing moment was a culmination of her kindness test. The plot twist? The food was incredible. With Natalie's guidance and Patrick's heart, they had created a menu that was both comforting and brilliant. But the real draw was the story. People came to be part of something good. They came to support the man who had stood up to the rude customers and defended the old lady. And what the old boss? Mr. Henderson's restaurant was closed, boarded up. A shocking, swift end. He had declared bankruptcy, his reputation in tatters. This was a final, perfect revenge, not just his failure, but Patrick's resounding success. Patrick had won by not playing his ugly game. One night, Henderson, a humiliated man, walked past the Marshall plan. He looked through the window and saw his former waiter, Patrick Marshall, laughing with the mayor. He saw a full house, happy customers, and a staff that looked respected. He saw everything he had lost and everything he had thrown away. It was a surprise lesson, learned too late. The drama that one night had redefined success in the city. Patrick's life story was now a testament to the idea that integrity was a bankable asset. Natalie Allen's secret identity test had proven her theory invests in character, and the profit will follow. The emotional journey was complete. Patrick, the waiter who had been humiliated, was now the most beloved restaurateur in the city. He had proven to his old boss and to the world that kindness and integrity weren't just nice ideas. They were the real, enduring keys to fame. This restaurant story wasn't just about food. It was about how one life-changing act of compassion, one moment of defending someone, could change the world. Patrick Marshall had passed the test, and in doing so, he had finally found his true worth. Patrick Marshall's story proves that true worth has nothing to do with your job title, but everything to do with your character. He was a waiter who was willing to lose everything for a stranger, and in doing so, he gained a life-changing future. His story is a powerful reminder that one act of kindness is never, ever wasted. If you also believe that compassion is a superpower and that integrity is the ultimate currency, then you have found your community. This channel is for people who believe in the good. Subscribe and become part of a movement that celebrates the best of humanity. Now, let's make this story even bigger. Like this video as a sign of respect for Patrick's 5-star integrity. Let's show the world what we value. Comment below with your answer to this: what is the single most powerful lesson you are taking away from this emotional story? And share this video with one person in your life who needs to be reminded that good people do win. And don't let the journey end here. While you wait for our next story, know that our channel is a treasure chest of powerful journeys just like this one. Explore our older videos and discover the other unforgettable stories you've missed. To make sure you are the first to see the incredible narratives we have coming, activate the notification bell right now. You won't want to miss what we find next.